Annie's nightmares started subtly. Whispers in the dark, shadows moving just beyond her vision. They grew more vivid with each passing night. The whispers became growls, the shadows menacing figures. Then came the creatures, tall skeletal beings with eyes that burned like hot coals. Their skin was slick, almost reptilian. They spoke in guttural tones, their words slithering around her like snakes. They came for her in the dead of night. Paralyzed with fear, she could only watch as they dragged her from her bed. Their touch was ice seeping into her bones. Each night the terror grew. Each night the unknown deepened. Their lair was cold, metallic. Annie shivered, strapped to a cold steel table. Blinding lights seared her eyes. The creatures moved around her, their whispers like shards of ice piercing her eardrums. She thrashed against the restraints, her heart pounding against her ribs like a war drum. Fear, raw and primal, coursed through her veins. Their cold, clammy hands probed and prodded, their touch sending chills down her spine. Their instruments, cold and sharp, glinted under the harsh lights. The creatures spoke in hushed, excited tones, their words a terrifying symphony of the unknown. Annie closed her eyes, desperate to escape the nightmare, but there was no escape, not from this. Night after night, the creatures returned. Each visit brought fresh horrors, painful experiments designed to test the limits of her endurance. They drew blood, injected strange liquids, and monitored her reactions with detached curiosity. Annie screamed until her throat was raw, her pleas for mercy echoing unanswered in the cold, sterile chamber. The creatures, unmoved by her terror, continued their work with chilling precision. She lost track of time. Days and nights blurred into an endless cycle of fear and pain. Her body, a canvas of bruises and needle marks, screamed in protest. Her mind, teetering on the brink of madness, clung to a sliver of hope. Hope that one day this nightmare would end. One night, amidst the terror, Annie noticed something different, a flicker of emotion in the creature's eyes. It was fleeting, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a hint of recognition. Hope, like a fragile seedling, began to sprout in the wasteland of Annie's despair. She clung to it, nurturing it with every ounce of her being. She started paying closer attention, observing the creatures, their routines, their reactions. She began to understand their language, the guttural sounds slowly transforming into words, phrases, and finally sentences. Knowledge, she realized, was her only weapon against the terror that had become her reality. Section 5. The Breakthrough. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A dropped file, a moment of distraction, a name whispered in haste. Project Mimic. The creatures were careless, their guard momentarily down. Annie, her mind sharp despite the horrors she had endured, seized the opportunity. She committed the name to memory, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. That night, for the first time since her ordeal began, Annie felt a glimmer of hope. A tiny spark in the overwhelming darkness. Project Mimic, she whispered to herself, the words a lifeline in a sea of despair. Section 6. The Horrifying Truth. Days turned into weeks. Annie, fueled by newfound purpose, used her observations to piece together fragments of information. She learned about a group of scientists, a secret government facility, and a radical experiment gone wrong. And then, the horrifying truth hit her. Project Mimic wasn't about her. It was about the creatures. They weren't aliens, demons, or monsters. They were humans. Humans twisted and deformed by a catastrophic experiment designed to mimic extraterrestrial DNA. The realization struck her like a physical blow. The creatures, the experiments, her suffering, it was all a result of human folly, of ambition gone horribly wrong. The knowledge, far from bringing comfort, only deepened her despair. Section 7. A New Reality. Annie's world, once defined by the boundaries of her small town, had been shattered. The lines between reality and nightmare blurred. The familiar became alien, the mundane, terrifying. She saw the world through new eyes, her innocence lost forever. The creatures, once the embodiment of her deepest fears, were now tragic figures, victims of a science gone mad. But their humanity, twisted and deformed, offered her little solace. She was trapped in a waking nightmare. A prisoner in a world where the monsters were not what they seemed, and the truth was more terrifying than any fiction. Section 8. Acceptance and fear. Acceptance came slowly, reluctantly. Annie, her spirit tempered by the fires of her ordeal, learned to navigate her new reality. She understood the creatures' motives, their desperation to understand what they had become. But understanding did not erase the fear of the unknown, of what the future held, of what she herself might become. She was a living testament to the horrors that lurked beneath the surface of the ordinary. She was a reminder that the monsters we fear the most are often the ones we create. Section 9. The Unknown Future. The nightmares continued, but their nature had shifted. The creatures were no longer the sole source of her terror. It was the knowledge they represented, the chilling truth that had been revealed. Annie knew her life would never be the same. She was forever changed, marked by the experience. The future stretched before her, uncertain and daunting. But she would face it, one day at a time. She would carry the weight of her knowledge, the burden of her truth, and she would find a way to survive. For Annie's story, though born of nightmares, was far from over.